This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and this is a review of Star Trek Picard Impossible Box. Let's sign out. Impossible Box, yes. Yeah, so it is in the Borg Cube. Of course, it's named after the Two Car Garage, the Christian rock band song from 2001. Yeah, of course. Because they knew about that somehow. Yeah, because silly Frank. Impossible Box. Yeah, that was Invisible Box. But, you know, yeah, so they're going to go to the Borg Cube. But first, yeah, apparently the captain, Rios, is having an affair with the Girardi character. For some reason, they're like a thing. Kind of came out of nowhere, but okay. Maybe she just gives it away frequently to other members of the crew. And maybe he does as well. Maybe some of his holograms are kinky. In the Cillian version, they are. Anyway, but not too bad. No, it's still PG. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I kind of rambled on about the other version. I'm just gonna review the story this time. They have to get onto the Borg Cube, and so they contact Raffi's friend, who is a captain in Starfleet. Now here is where she contacts the Cillian from Andover, in Semesters, the lady that we thought was going to be her character, but no, she contacts her. She's a captain now, and she is yeah, she's one of the Cillians who gets her permission to go onto the ship. She is the character from the Semester's Cillian story that was black but thought she was white, which was just kind of a joke in the story because I thought it would be funny if it was like reversed, because usually Eminem and those kind of guys think they're black and they're not, they're white. Well, they kind of do because they're doing like rapper stuff. So I reversed that in the story, so she thought she was white, but it really didn't work. So maybe she's recovered from that in the Cillian story. It's a plot of one of the characters that's a quirky character. Since Raffi Musiker is halfway, it makes sense that she wouldn't be her. She would be, but she might know the person that was that person. So, so she's the commander. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, that would be that the made-up character in the Silly Trek story is not important. Her name was Jostin. Julie's Jostin. Well, she's not Julie's Jostin. This character is actually someone new, someone named Jasmine, which is in the parody. But yeah, yeah, that's straightened out. Also, the slight, yeah, the affair thing. None of them can figure out that Girardi like kind of killed the guy they were looking for, Maddox. They can't figure that out, so they just, he's dead. She explains that he was dying of cardiac arrest anyway, or whatever. It's like, wouldn't there be a record of her turning the hologram off, though? On the ship, you would think. Yeah, plot hole. The Cillian version, Raffi shoots her with a phaser, stuns her, and then she explains. It's kind of the same idea, but Raffi has a little bit of a moment with the captain, Rios, as well. I keep saying the Cillian names. That doesn't make sense. Rios, the captain. And apparently they have been hanging around together, I guess. Or they knew each other from long ago, and she starts drinking again, but that was going to be obvious. Yeah. He gives her black coffee later. Yeah. Because even in the future, apparently that does something. Why don't they just have Synthahol on the ship? Anyway, so yes, they go to the cube. We flash back to the cube ship and the spy guy, who is written better than than Tyler Vaught was from Discovery. He's way better. Problem is he's kind of like hipster Spock, and it keeps getting really confusing. Hipster Spock last season was Spock with a beard. Kind of the same character. So maybe this one it is. But yeah, Soji has a weird dream that she can't go into the father's workshop and look at something that's in there. There's lightning outside and stuff, and orchids and plants and things. They kind of imply that these two robots are... They're clearly supposed to be androids. They've established that. That's not really a spoiler. That they are sophisticated and advanced. Maybe the twist is that Data didn't actually create them. Because there's no really established for that. He died years ago. They can't be Data's children technically. Some other race of androids that were really sophisticated created them. It's probably with the Tal Shiar and the Zhat Vash. They dropped the Zhat Vash. It's still there, but they kind of dropped it. Zhat Vash is a spin-off group, silly name, that's trying to get rid of all androids. So the brother and the sister are conspiring again to get the information out of her through her dreams. But the sister is concerned she will activate and kill them all. Yeah. So... Yeah, the Picard and crew are rushing out there to go to the cube and find them. There's a plot device where the Romulan guy has a puzzle box that he's transforming back and forth. Like a sophisticated Rubik's cube that has a device in it similar to the device from Nemesis, except similar to the device in there. They kind of showed shots of this in the previews, the device. So they kind of gave stuff away. If you were watching the hints, you could tell what was going on. But wouldn't that activate her too? Wouldn't that, like, doing this device that does bad things, wouldn't that trigger her? The girl slept with the Romulan guy again, but she's conflicted, and she calls her mother and finds out that her mother is a hologram, and that sums up. So she scans the thing, the stuff that she brought with her, and it's all 3 years old. It's 37 months old. It's roughly 3 years old. So she was created 3 years ago, but Data died 20 years ago, according to the story. So. She's not technically Data's daughter. She's more like another sophisticated robot that happens to have some of Data's ideas. Maybe. Okay, so she looks at her stuff. It's 37 months old. She wigs out. And she says this to the Romulan guy, and he kind of almost hints that she's not real. It's a robot right there. But meanwhile, Picard and crew have found a way through a diplomatic immunity from talking to the captain lady, who is clearly the silly lady. I think they call her Emmy in the story, but she's clearly the Cillian lady that thought she was white years ago. But now she's recovered and she doesn't think that anymore. Because that's a little silly. She's obviously black. It'd be silly if she did that. Yeah, it was a joke in the story, like off and on. But yeah, because yeah. In this version we don't address that, but in the Silly Trek one we totally do. This is funny, because it's like and really, some of the people complaining about politics in this. Where is the politics? Clearly, the story is like sort of a new BSG ripoff clone, but not done by Ronald D. Moore, which would make it better. And yeah, there's no what politics. I mean, other than there being conspiracy theorists and robots and droids and stuff in Romulan rituals that are clearly a trap. The guy, Picard, goes to see the Hugh, who's running the Borg facility. They learn something about the Borg facility. That scene was cool. They're in the Borg hospital bay and all that. And Hugh has apparently severed them from the collective somehow. They never really explained that. They're just not in the collective anymore. You find out about the Queen's Chamber and what looks like an Iconian gateway later on. But before we get to that, so they have tied it a little bit into the games. Yeah, Star Trek Online. Also, the ship, the Verity from the comic books looked like the Enterprise F from the games. It was probably a little bit on purpose as a nod, or they just ran out of ideas. They probably ran out of ideas because they were showing assets from Discovery as well. They did repair the warp effect. Trek Yards was complaining the warp effect was a little too busy. This time when they showed the warp effect, they dialed it back a little bit, so it was more like streaking stars. It's still a little overdone, but it was a little better. I think it's funny that the warp effect that they probably spent a lot on 2 seconds of visuals of shimmering like desktop. That I did that in Starship Chimera with some party lights, and spun the party lights behind the ship. They looked better than that first warp effect in this show. Spun party lights. Very old school. That's probably what they did on the original Star Trek. They turned the disco light around really fast. And to one point, the Enterprise encountered a floating disco light in space. It turned into a Melkoshian, the alien head thing. They put literally a disco flashlight. It was like, it's a ship. It's after us. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, classic Trek. So they go to they send them to the ship, but of course the Picard has to go alone to the board ship and meet with Hugh and do the sickbay thing. Meanwhile, our evil Romulan guy has trapped the girl in the dream chamber. We'll call it the dream chamber, or the cube within the cube, the secret Romulan dream chamber. Very much like the Upside Down in Stranger Things, or sort of, but not as scary. Although it wasn't scary, it's more like jump scares. And some of the other stuff. So, and like Cube, they used the same set. They visually tied in the one block set that they redressed each time to make it look like, you could totally tell they built this enormous set, probably the size of this room, maybe a little bigger, and they kept just recoloring the walls with different lighting. It was probably a kind of a gray, and they lit it with gold paint, or they lit it with blue paint, or lit it with like Borg lights on it and everything. So yeah, so they're in the runabout. So yeah, the dream room. But obviously he's up to no good. He's trying to get her to like reveal her identity, which is insane and suicidal of him. Like, to do that would be to activate her, and she would become a butt-kicking robot fighter thing. She'd become a Cylon, a fracking Cylon. Okay, so he gets the information about this planet with moons from her dream. A planet with red moons. 2 red moons. Is it the mud planet or something? That also helps later. Hugh and Picard find the Queen's Chamber on the cube. Every board cube has one, and they find the Iconian gateway. And the Romulan young man has followed them to the cube and fends off the other Romulan attackers. Well, they activate the gateway so they can go to Kine-Reparator or something like that, one of the planets. And they're going to go to the planet where apparently Riker will be. Yeah. He's not in it yet. So if you're waiting for Riker to be in, he's not in this episode. So they're going to go to this other planet. They're in the former neutral zone. The Trek Yard's guessed on what's it going to be, the former neutral zone? Yeah, it is. It's the former neutral zone. But now they're going to go somewhere else. Hopefully not 40,000 light years like the gateway could go, because that would be silly. The cube is going to chase them in the next episode. But anyway, so giving away next episode. So we have little pieces of the next episode. Clues, episode 7. Impossible box. It's boxes within boxes within boxes. Apparently the Romulans, like the Klingons, are also Cold War Soviet Russians, and they have a nesting doll. They have the Matryoshka nesting doll. Yeah. They may grow a brain from the nesting doll. She is like the nesting doll, apparently. So I think that, yeah, a race of android humanoids built Soji and Daj, and that they happen to use some of Data's parts or something, or his engrams, but that they're humanoid. They're completely human. So it's a different race that they haven't. They might have met in the TNG period. This producer knows that they could be the Muds women androids. They could be the androids from the Masterpiece Society. They could be some other planet, like that sort of androids. They could be Lore's descendants or something. They could be anything, really. It could be tied to V'ger. They could tie it to that if they want to. Then they would be Cillians, basically. They could tie it to Q, and that would also make them Cillians. But yes. Yeah, it could just be, Mark's cards, and it could be Pine Hill that they're going to, which would be hilarious. They go to Florida. No, but yeah, there's so they escape through the gateway, and the other guy's holding them off, the Romulan kid, and Hugh stay behind, and Picard and Soji go through the gateway and escape. The other ship is told that they're going to escape, so they're going to go after them if they escape. Meet them at the rendezvous. Katrina and Borg would chase after them. Yeah, so I didn't mention the part where she escapes. The evil box opened up, sprayed this red matter everywhere, which should have killed her, but it didn't. And she punched her way through the floor, fell through the floor, and that's when she met Picard. Yeah, I should probably point that out. and offered to help her and said that he knows who she is and everything, her father. And yes, so she went with him after she was kind of activated, but kind of not. And the Romulan guy and the Romulan's evil sister are on the ship fretting over that, but probably going to go after them in the cube. So I don't think it's going to be an Earth attack silly scenario. I don't think they're going to take the cube to Earth, and that would be silly. I don't think the conspiracy is all of Starfleet. I think it's some of them, but the ones in power. So that, I guess, kind of, if you sort of twist it around, is a political rant about Republicans or conservatives, but not really, because it's a sci-fi show and it's so layered in this sort of universe. It isn't really that at all. So the ones that are wigging out and feeling snowflakey on either side, a conservative or liberal, it's not about that. It's not about Trump or politics or anything like that. It's not about Biden. It's not about Bernie. It's not about that. It's in the space, in the future. As for the Silly Trek story, well, they have a Trump-like bad guy in it. But we don't really see him that much, so... There's a Cillian comment. With comedy, you have to kind of literally go there with the Picard spoof. It literally, like each one of these episodes is about 6 pages in the comedy story. It's really short because there's not a lot of material to work with each episode. They have a lot of drama moments, but really the meat of this episode, like the other ones, is just, okay, we're going to go onto a ship and stop and rescue the girl, basically. That's not really that long a story. It's not bad. It's not great. It's fine. Yeah. So from a TNG era person, it's all right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Impossible Box.